Welcome back, everyone. Michael O'Connor here, doctor of physical therapy. As an orthopedic physical therapist, I would often have patients come in expressing concern about their walking pattern. They would describe feeling like they're stubbing their toe or their legs just don't feel strong. They don't have endurance. Their gait pattern, their walking pattern just didn't feel smooth. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the hip, the knee, and the ankle components that are required for a nice smooth walking pattern. And most importantly, I'm going to provide some self-assessments that you can perform at home safely so that you can try to problem solve if your issue is coming from your hip, knee, or ankle. As always, please don't forget to check with your physician and make sure these exercises are appropriate for your specific situation. And I always said to patients, one fall is one fall too many. So let's take a look at how we can make your walking much better and eliminate those falls. I hope you enjoy it. A normal gait pattern, or normal walking, requires the coordination of our hip, knee, and ankle to work in synchronization to clear that limb just from when we're pushing off with the toe, swinging the limb through, and then accurately striking with the heel for the next step. This is particularly important when walking up inclines or up hills or uneven surfaces. When we look at the hip component, we see that right when the toe is about to push off, the hip engages and has to flex. It has to have the strength to flex to bring our leg and limb through. If it doesn't flex properly, it will create a longer limb, and that's what could catch our toe. So here's a way that you can test the hip flexor component to see if that's possibly causing your issue. Using a chair for balance and safety, if you place your foot in front, so all we're going to simply do is lift the hip up gently, roughly as high as we can, and do a couple repetitions of that. Can you feel the hip flexor muscle doing the work that it needs to do? If this feels very heavy and it's hard to lift your leg, or you feel you need to lean back, that could be an indication that the hip flexor portion could be contributing to you stubbing your toe. If you're able to perform that, you can now perform the same test with your leg just next to the other leg and lifting straight up. This is a middle version, not quite as easy as the first test, but seeing after 3 or 4 repetitions how that feels in the hip flexor area. If you notice that's okay, then we're going to simulate the actual activity that happens during walking. Our leg is behind us, our toe's about to push off. I'm definitely using a chair for safety here, and I'm going to slowly flex and lift that leg up without moving the rest of my body, maintaining good neutral posture the whole time. Can I flex and control the lift of this leg? Once again, if this feels difficult for your hip flexor, this could be a component of why you're catching your toe and being unstable during walking. If that's the case, then we want to train that. Here's how we do it. Remember, for walking, we want to have great endurance in our muscles, not just the strength, but endurance, the ability to walk long distances with good accuracy. So if you're finding the hip is weak and tired and you're having trouble doing maybe 2 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions, that's where I would start. It's just simply replicating that motion in a safe, controlled environment like this with a chair and going through 10 to 12 repetitions of hip flexion. Back down, extending, slow and controlled. This will replicate what is needed for the hip to do during the walking. You'll also notice that the standing leg, in this case my left leg, also gets fatigued, and that's a good thing because your hip muscles on the left are stabilizing my pelvis to make sure I'm not losing and slouching as my leg swings through. Possibly working up to 3 sets of 15 repetitions to really get good endurance in that muscle. The next thing you can do is add a weight. This could be as simple as an ankle weight. With weight added, I'm probably going to have to go back down to 5 to 8 repetitions, but again, replicating the same motion, now with a little more resistance. Now let's look at the knee component. If your hip seems like it's got good endurance, we want to look a little further down the chain at the knee. When I'm about to push off with my toe, my knee has to bend, but I also have to lift my foot just a little bit. That's my hamstring doing that work so that I can clear through for my swing through of the leg. So again, as my toe's pushing off, I need to engage my knee, bend it just a little bit for the swing through component. Here's how we can test to see if the knee is performing as it should. So with my toe behind me, just like I'm about to push off again, I can have my leg in line with my other thigh and just flex my knee and see if my hamstring will allow that motion to occur. Now I don't want to go too far and maximize the heel lift because that often ends up in cramping the hamstring. So try a few repetitions and see if you can feel your hamstring doing the work that's needed. A little more challenging of a position, which replicates walking again, is with my leg extended behind me, keeping my hip extended and then bending the knee. Can my hamstring do the work that I need it to do there? This is a little more challenging, but it really replicates the push-off part of the walking. If you find that the hamstring feels a little weak and doesn't seem to be performing as it should, we want to try to strength train the hamstring. Here's how we can do that. So I like to use a chair, again, not only for balance and safety, but I also like to use it kind of as a guide because I don't want my knee too far in front. So I'm going to simply maintain a good, tall, neutral posture, and I'm going to just lift that foot up toward my glute area, flexing my knee, and I'm going to try 2 to 3 sets of 5 to 8 repetitions. Slow and controlled, particularly lowering my foot back down to the ground. As we discussed, we want endurance in our muscles, so I can either add more repetitions, which I would do first, going to 12 to 15 repetitions of the same exercise, and then eventually using that resistance of the ankle weight to load that muscle a little bit more, working up to the 12 to 15 repetitions. And finally, if the hip seems well and the knee seems to be doing the work that's supposed to, it could be our ankle. This is probably one of the more common things that we see because as the leg is coming down, gravity is kind of helping the hip and knee. But one thing that has to happen is our toes have to be lifted up to clear on that swing through. And that's often where our shin muscle will come into play. So here's how you can test that muscle. The seated position is a little bit easier for the shin muscle, and your foot out in front is the easiest position. Here, I can just see, can I accurately lift my foot all the way up toward me and make sure that I can engage that muscle properly. If you can't do this motion with a good amount of range in it, you want to strength train in this position exactly. Good tall posture. Again, high repetitions, 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. Slow and controlled. If you can do that easily, we'll bring our knee to about a 90-degree angle, and then we're going to lift up. If you're not sure how high you can normally go, test the other side as well. It's good to compare left and right sides. If you're weak here, this is where, once again, you can build up the repetitions. And then finally, we've replicated the position with the hip extended on the swing through. So here is where we can practice lifting our toes up. This is a little bit more difficult, particularly because there's a little bit of tension on the calf muscle as well. But this lift right here can really help lift the toes and clear them for that swing through. Another option is to do this against a wall and practice lifting and maximizing the height. So we've covered the hip, the knee, and the ankle for a smooth gait pattern. The reality is it's rarely just one area completely by itself. There's usually a little bit of hip with knee or knee with ankle. So do these self-assessments, make sure it's nice and safe. Identify if your right side and left side are about equal and it seems easy and you can do high repetitions. If not, focus your strength training there and then gently take some walks in between your strength training days. Try not to strength train and fatigue your muscles and then go for a long walk. You want a little recovery time. I think you'll find these tips will help and your gait will become smoother. Most importantly, we're going to prevent falls because one fall is one too many.
I hope you enjoyed this video. This was a fun one to make. Please let me know in the comments how these tips are helping you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get updates on when new videos are out. We'll see you next time. Take care.